Still got to work on cold and hot start and warm up. The AFR offsets are not right, so I'm gonna have to play with that. I think I probably just need to lean it out a little bit. It's a little too rich. So let's go over some stuff with this multi-port setup because it's been hell. Alright, so it's doing the warm-up thing right now. I've been driving it. It's running very well. A lot of adjustments to the timing table. The biggest issues with it are in and out of gear. Lot of history in the last couple of months that I haven't gone over yet, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. The biggest problems I've been working on are in and out of gear, and I'm not happy with how I've had to solve this problem, but it's okay that I've solved it the way that I have. By the way, this little surge it's doing, it only does it when it's in warm up, and it has to do with the fueling. I gotta fix the enrichment, but it'll stop doing it once it gets over 160. So one video I showed where I had hooked up the IAC kick to the neutral safety switch. I've taken that to a whole new level in the tune, and I've actually set up a 1D table to kind of handle the offset. I've put a delay in it, and I've tied it to the TPS, so the TPS is less than 2% anytime it comes into play, and I've also ramped how much it offsets the IAC depending on RPM. So the lower the RPM goes, it'll max out at about 20%, which is about what it needs to idle in gear. It needs an extra 20% IAC. It should drop in pretty nice here now. So yeah, it's pretty nice. I had it set where it would immediately pull the IAC up as soon as I shifted out of park, and what would happen was the RPM would spike for a second while it was still transitioning into gear, and it would try and compensate, and then the load would hit and it would kind of oscillate a little bit. It wasn't very smooth, so I put a 200 millisecond delay on that offset from happening, the IAC offset, which seems to work really quite well. That's reverse and that's park. So you can see it transitions pretty decently. Of course, it's not warm yet. It works even better when it's warm. I've got the stock torque converter back in it right now. I had put a 1800 to 2000 stall converter in it. Thought that there was a problem with the converter. Turns out there wasn't anything wrong with the converter. It was something in the tune with timing. There's a lot of issues. I worked with two different tuners, and one of them was really good, but I couldn't get his attention, and the other one is somebody that's well known, and he was quite frankly an asshole. So anyways, I've tuned it myself, and I've got it pretty darn close. The learn is 1 to 2% across the board, which is just fantastic. It runs smooth, it drives great. I just had to do a lot of work on the return to idle stuff. It was wanting to stall when you come to a stop. And a lot of that's just the cam that's in this. It's the cam, it's the 1.7 rockers. It doesn't produce a lot of vacuum at idle. You can see, obviously, we're at about 70 kPa. Once it warms up, it'll be about 68 or so, and it'll even up. Some. In gear, about 75 kPa. Which is 7 inches of vacuum or so, almost 8 inches of vacuum. It's not great, but it's just kind of typical for a 200 with a cam in it like this. So anyways, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not happy with how I had to get there. I tried all kinds of IAC settings. I tried low side enabling, which is a custom setting that's supposed to basically gives you more aggressive PID settings for the IAC. I couldn't get it to work right. It was just easier to use an input to tell it that it's in gear. So, like I said, it seems to work pretty good. Drops into gear really nicely. So I've kind of almost wanted to do an experiment with putting TBI on it just to see how it would run, but I don't know that I'm going to screw with it. The thing's really been thing's really running pretty nice. Another thing that I played with was the injector end angle. I found that this motor likes closed valve injection better, certainly around idle. It's probably would make more power if I set up an end angle table. But I'm running this at about minus 120 degrees end angle, which means that my injection ends 120 degrees before bottom dead center. So basically we're spraying all the fuel in the port virtually before the valve opens, not all of it. It seems to like that during idle. It definitely runs smoother at idle, and it also, the emissions out the rear are very bearable now. Before, it was very rich out the back, a lot of raw fuel smell. I've gotten rid of most of that just by changing the injector end angle and running more timing at idle. This motor just seems to really like a lot of timing at idle. It's like 28 degrees, which nothing wrong with that. It seems to be happy. Fixed the valve cover leak. There was an oil leak that was leaking out the back there. So I got that tightened up. Obviously, one of the other things I didn't mention is I'm running a completely different throttle body, if you'll notice. One of the theories that I had, which it did help some, I think it did help with the IAC control at idle, was the elbow that I had on here has about 85 cubic inches of volume. That's 85 cubic inches of added plenum. So got rid of that, put a 1000 CFM throttle body on it, which is twice the size it needs. I could disable the secondaries on this, quite honestly. I haven't because it seems to run pretty well, but I could disable the secondaries. It's just one linkage, and then I'd have about a 500 CFM throttle body. I just have to remove this right here. But it seems to like it, so I put the Spectre, the Spectre carb hat on it. Not exactly cheap, but it looks nice. So it's not as nice as the setup was. It was really nice with that elbow on it and everything, but you know what? It just didn't run right. So, like I said, I'm pretty happy with how it's running. I think I'm going to finish dialing the cold and hot start in. It's very close. You know, it kicks back a little bit, and part of that is it's entering its timing table a little too soon. I might need to turn the crank to run RPM up a little bit. If I do that, that might get rid of that. So anyways, I got to play with some settings there. But overall, you know, it's pretty good. Honestly, for the person that doesn't want to deal with all this trouble, put a frickin' TBI on it, a Sniper or a Thytec. It's just so much easier. I will say it runs smooth as glass, though, unlike the TBI did. Once you raise up the RPM, you could balance a nickel on this thing. I mean, it really runs nice. So anyways, it's become my daily driver right now because the GTI is out of commission. I need to do some cleanup on it now that I know this is going to be the permanent setup. I got to do something with the return fuel line, or actually this is the pressure side. Well, excuse me. Pressure, going to the regulator. That's what this is. You always regulate out. So I need to do something with this. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it yet. I don't know if I want to do a 90 and bring it up this side, which I might very well do. But I've got the harness and stuff in the way, so I don't know. I'm not too sure with that yet. The zip tie works for now. I got to clean up some of the harness. I had to move stuff around, obviously, for this particular throttle body. Oh, the other thing that's a benefit on this throttle body too is it's got a built-in mass air temperature sensor, not mass airflow, but air temperature sensor. Manifold MAT, which is nice. The elbow, it wasn't in the right place and it was reading way higher than it was supposed to. Not that that's a big deal because we don't really care too much about that. I don't have the tune set to really do anything with air temperature, but it's just nice to have it in the right place. So, you know, the conventional throttle body, 4-barrel throttle body is nice. You know, the linkage, I'm not super happy with the cable going the way that it is, but that's just kind of the way that it has to be. It wasn't set up for this, obviously. But it works. It works. It's got a little return spring bracket on it there, so we're good there. Yeah, it stays friggin' cool. I mean, it stays cooler than the old motor did. I think part of that is aluminum head. It has the ability to pull the energy out of the coolant easier. Certainly, the fan. I do notice the fan runs a little bit faster now, but the temperatures are staying. I don't. 180, 185 all day. I mean, I drove it to work and back the other day. I took the Canyon on the way home. It never went over 185. So, certainly there's no issues there. It's not working out exactly as I wanted it to, but I shouldn't expect it to. The injector angle, not the end angle that I was talking about earlier, which is when your spray angle ends, but the angle of the injectors is not optimum. They probably should be a little bit further back and a little bit more angled, which would have put them here, which isn't right. It would have been, stuff wouldn't have fit if we'd done that. So, it's not going to be perfect. This is not an engine that was designed for multi-port injection. So, I shouldn't expect a ton. Also, this cam is ground on 110, so it's got quite a bit of overlap, and it's only 200 cubic inches. So I can't expect perfection, but it idles in gear pretty nicely, especially once it really warms up. The fuel atomization is better even when it's hot. I could totally drive it every day now, I think. So aside from some cleanup stuff that I want to do, the other thing I'm probably going to do is hook up the vacuum to the regulator. Cruising downhill, the AFR, cruising, like when you come up to a peak on the freeway and you're going, 80 down with the throttle closed, I'm seeing the AFR in the 12 range. The injectors are at their minimum open time. So what'll happen is if I hook a vacuum to it, it'll lower the fuel pressure under high vacuum, because that's the only time I'll see that much vacuum. And that'll help with the fuel consumption during decel, because that'll affect mileage. So anyways, overall, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Would I spend this kind of money to do it on every one of these builds? No. I think you could probably put a sniper on top of this thing and it would, in some ways, it would probably be better, like idle control, because of fuel coating the walls of the intake and stuff. I think part of that is probably why it doesn't like to transition in and out of gear, or, well, not out of gear, just in gear. So all my trickery that I've had to do, in general, it's good. It certainly makes a ton of power for what it is. When you get it up on the freeway, I mean, it has absolutely zero problems doing 80 plus, with minimal throttle, just as a comparison to stock. Stock, you had to really try. You stick your foot in this thing. I've easily had it over 100. It makes plenty of power. 200. It's in the 200, 215 range, I would guess, at the crank. So, that's it. It's pretty good. I'd like to get it on a dyno. I need to find somebody that's got one. I'm confident that the tune is pretty darn close now. So, anyways, I can't think of anything else, but I know everybody really wants an update. I'm getting pinged by a bunch of people, and so I wanted to make sure I took the time to talk about it. There's just a lot going on right now, and I haven't had time to spend, spend on doing updates on the video, but I want to make sure I got that done. So anyways, we'll catch you guys next time.